Good afternoon. Um, I have two incredible speakers to um, follow up with, and all three of us are from NID, and you undoubtedly see elements of our learning that are reflected here. What I wanted to talk about today is that in our first year we were taught something called the design process. That there's a certain way, a certain method in which works are done. Where I come to now is that perhaps the first part of any design project is designing the process itself. And through snippets of other projects of a lot of the projects that I've done, I'll just quickly share with you what the design process looks like. So all roads lead somewhere. At times we start off with an end in our minds when we start off the design process. So, if I get a project, I immediately decide this is what I want to do, and I build all my conclusions to lead towards that. But perhaps there are other ways of doing it. And with these examples, I'll just quickly share a few different ways in which we work. So design for distinction. In this case, we wanted to celebrate a particular way of working, which is what the coppersmith does when they are not doing works on a technique called spinning, which is done on the machine. So all these objects are handmade, but what makes them handmade and what makes them such that a machine cannot make them? That slight tilt. It's not an easy thing for a machine to do. And you won't see it here, but there's a slight weld line if you see around the neck. It's a product we call the Shiva jug, which very simply articulates how water flows out through the neck of the jug, and there's a small shivling that is hidden inside, and the shape of the top is like that of a yoni. So pulling on things that are very traditional that typically industrial processes would not want to venture in. Design for memory. Now you might all recognize this as something that's very familiar with you, the Amar Chitra Katha. The Amar Chitra Katha, I feel, is a very strong cultural product, because for many of us, this is what taught us history. And for many of us, this is what we see our childhood as. So Amar Chitra Katha to me is very much a part of our culture, and in a way, we immortalize it by taking it out of the print into a product that is very detailed and woven. These are all handmade daris, which are woven in these patterns, and Chandu had earlier shown the process. It's a whole area of products. These were just experiments, we never took them forward, but these are ways in which we were trying to work. Design for commentary. Chandrasekhar has spoken about those little boxes from Kashmir, which spoke about the camouflage and the rock and the apple. This is a small little light, which is made using paper. And if you see, you'd see the skeleton of a silverfish. You don't see it very often now, but when we were growing up, a lot of books used to have these silverfish inside them. So it's pulling on that, and we call it the NDM1. Now the NDM1 was a superbug that was called after New Delhi. The Lancet magazine had said it's because of New Delhi that the superbug, which is resistant to all antibiotics, is there. And India, rightfully so, said, no, it is not going to be called after New Delhi. And there was a huge furor about it. Well, at one point, we do owe the responsibility because we have been using antibiotics indiscriminately. So, let's just own it up. What if we then worked on bugs that made us read, chronically read? And in this way, we are trying to put the idea of reading, and can we make reading I wouldn't say disease, but reading something that is so compulsive to us that we have to do it. It's very simply made. It's got a little copper which retains the shape, and the two antlers together, when you twist them, the light goes on and that completes the circuit. Design for recontextualizing. Now, that is Abdul Khalik. I worked with him in 1993 in the village Jaitaran. They make something called the patra, which is used by the Jain monks. It's an incredible piece of craftsmanship, something that is not done in any other part of the world now, which used to be common, wherein they would take out blocks of wood, one from the other, and reuse it and not waste any wood. And this is being done in Rajasthan using a wood called rohida, which is a difficult and rare wood. Recontextualizing why. The Jain monks have discovered that plastic is actually far easier and far, doesn't break as quickly. So the Jain monks are very happy using plastic. So there is a recontextualizing that's needed. These are what the original bowls look like. They are fine. They're very thin, very fine. And if you ever come across them in any derasar, please lift them up. They're magic. And there are not very many people left who can do it. What is unique, if for anybody who's worked with wood, is that these bowls are stacked so tightly together. And wood, as many of you know, warps with the season. But this wood does not warp. What does that allow us to do? It allows us to make stacking vessels that do not warp. The memory of the product or what they were doing traditionally has been carried on, but the key elements have been continued. So it's just a recontextualization of what they do and taken forward into products that might sit in places other than, the Jain monks' bowls. Design for revitalization. This was a project that we did in a small village called Sultana. I'd done this project in 2009, where it was a government-sponsored project, but we went to this particular village because the sarpanch had said, "Bhaiya kuch karo." As many of you know, bird cages are banned, so are swords, and those are the two things this village was known for. So using the same skills, we wanted to make things that are a little bit grander, bigger than life, things that are not sold by the weight. This is one of the many products that were developed that take the same skills required to make bird cages and swords into something else. They can possibly get much more revenue for them. Now, all these are designed to be moved. These all stack because a very big part of the cost and the viability of a product is how it gets transported, particularly when you're crossing vast distances in Rajasthan. A whole array of lamps and other products were also made. One thing interesting about the project was that the end result of the project was a small booklet with all the designs I had done and a list of all the exporters in Jaipur, in Rajasthan. The idea was to encourage the artisans or the makers to reorganize themselves, approach these various exporters, and see what they can do with them. Having done that, and when I visit the village again, I see a huge array of new products, new materials, new techniques, because what many people need is just that one starting point, one point of departure to leap and go into new areas. Now this was a small area, a place close to Jaipur called Geejgarh, designed for empowerment. Now, why am I pointing out these various statements designed for? Is that those were actually the design briefs that we interpreted. When we are told that, okay, design a chair, but why chair? What is the brief that we give to ourselves? What is the design process that we then work with? In this case, the idea was to think about how design can make products that get more than the traditional value. Now, these are the skills that are used to make traditional baskets, which many of you might have seen, very common in Rajasthan, Haryana, Punjab, those areas. But what can we do using that to make it more than just a basket? So in this case, we designed these chairs, which have been sold very successfully overseas, wherein there is a metal structure at the bottom, a metal structure at the top. The metal structure is sent to the village, to Geejgarh, where a community of women sit and make these. And these are made very painstakingly. These baskets look like, simple vessels. They're actually leaves of the palm tree with grass inside. And each palm leaf is then taken through the needle and stitched and looped. An extremely tedious process that is not reflected in the end product, and certainly not the value given for it. Design for joy. So this is one of our most popular products. So I'm an entrepreneur, and we have stores in Jaipur and partner stores other parts of the country and the world. The idea was how do we introduce joy through an object? So these are small tables that you're seeing from the top. They're all hand painted. Now if you notice, these tables have a slight edge. What does that edge do? That edge makes sure that it cannot be digitally printed, because the printer head has to go very close to the surface to print. In this case, these tables cannot be printed by machine. They can only be hand painted. Design for Joy it came out with the idea that how do we add an element of color and joy and identity to a home? As you see, many homes are in this incredible shades of gray and beige, commonly called greige right now. So most houses and magazines have this grayish tone to them. Within that context, how can we add joy? How can we add something that is vibrant and us? And each one of these, we introduce 3 patterns every year, and each of these patterns has a story, has a narrative, which is given to people along with the product that they buy. So these are our stores. This was just a very quick introduction. ANANTAYA is the name of my 2 daughters, Ananya and Tanaya. I have a third one also, who was born after the brand was made. It's a courtyard of a very old building, and that small store out there that we designed used to be the Kacheri, because this is in the Narayan Nivas in Jaipur. So the Thakur of Kanota was actually the head of the police force, and this is the area that was used. It was lying defunct. That used to be a car service garage that we claimed back because I found this place not too far from home and on Google Maps. And this is the store out there. And out here we have a lot of products that, and each product has a story. Why does it need to exist? In today's day and date, we have the problem of plenty. So the question of why something needs to exist is probably central to our design process. Why? Why one more? Our practice works with craftspeople from around the country. We work in a way where we have a mothership, which is our own factory, because very often it is not possible for an artisan to take things to the logical conclusion. If an artisan makes something in brass, can they do lacquering that will survive transit across the seas? Probably not. So taking that product from artisans, combining it with various other things, putting in the due necessary technical, material, capital, managerial, design things to give a product to the market is ready to take and pay for. One of the things that we did in, we do a lot of exports as well, and we have clients around the world. For many years, I used to white label my designs, my products, but sold under somebody else's name. At one point I said, probably that's doing a disservice not just to myself, but to the Indian design community, because we do not need to allow this to happen to us. I came back to my clients and said, I'd be happy to sell the product to you, but you have to give credit to me as an Indian designer. Some of them said, sorry, we cannot do that, but some of them said yes. And these products, so this bench is something that we make out of babool, which draws from the logic of the bullock cart. For many of you who've seen it, a bullock cart's neck, thin neck, is made with wood and metal, and only one material is never going to suffice. It always has to be this combination of tension and compression that makes it work. Likewise, this bench will only work if those 2 metal braces are there, otherwise it will collapse. The top is rope, it's bindi fiber. This particular product has been the highest ever selling product for CB2, which is a partner brand of Crate and Barrel. Till date, we've sold about 30,000 pieces, and it's been in their catalog for the last 12 years, despite them telling me every year that we sold too many, we need to take it out, but their back orders are not filled up. This is a lot of the products that we make within our second brand, which is AKFD, which I started as soon as I finished college, which is products that are simple, easy, practical, and can be made to scale and meant for India. Very simple, easy, locally made, modern, contemporary products. This is the store. Now this is designed for interpretation, coming back to the original line of thought. The charpai you might have seen very often. The charpai, like the sari, carries in its seeds of something that's uniquely Indian. In all these years of thinking and mulling over the idea on what is Indian design, or what is Indian about design, or what kind of design is Indian, I kind of came to certain logic conclusions for myself. Possibly, design is not about what something is or looks like. Probably it's something about how it behaves, or why it should exist, or the ease with which something can fit in so many circumstances, or how an object can be interpreted by each person who's using it for themselves. A sari fits many sizes. A sari can be worn in many ways. A charpai can fit various homes and performs various functions. So perhaps the search for an Indian design idiom is not in the visual of it, but in the core of what something is in the first place. This was the Charpai project which we did with the Serendipity Arts Festival. In that project, this was in 2018, we went to various cities, we went to 5 cities, 5 design schools, and we taught young design students the ease of weaving a charpai. It's a very simple thing to do, and within 3 hours, I promise I can make even the most stubborn person a master at weaving charpais. And that's a far more useful thing than many other skills that we have, if we had the right charpai frames. This was done in Pune itself. This is Hem Singh Ji. He came from a village close to Bikaner, who we got as the master weaver, who would teach. And along with him were me and my assistant Ramayud, who was at that time doing his internship with me. And this was the installation that we had worked on. This installation was in Goa, in the Children's Park, where we were thinking about the charpai as something that the poor person uses. Okay, what else? In this idea, we imagined a whole city, a whole complex, a whole arena, different ways in which a charpai can be used. So a lot of these charpais are woven, but we've kept them plain in solid colors, so that the patterns come across only when you come close to them. And use scaffolding as a basic idea, and this was a structure that allowed people to move all around it. And it was very simply done. The idea is that we need not complicate things beyond what they need to be. Design is not about making things more complicated, it's about making things real. At the end of it, we had a slide where you climb around, you come down. Where you see the blue tarp is what the stage was, and performance used to happen there, and people would be walking around, and in that sense, it was a live backdrop. Design for statement. This was, I was invited by Ambiente, which is the world's oldest trade fair, to create the India Pavilion out there. It was a very challenging project. We had exactly 2.5 days to install the entire structure. The Germans had come to me with a lot of doubt. Ye kar payenge ki nahi kar payenge, India mein hai, kya karna hai? And they told me that these are the contractors in Germany who would do it for us. The budget was tiny. But I insisted, no, we are going to do it out here, and we will assemble it out there. And this entire structure was built, shipped, and assembled within the 2.5 days that we got. And the entire area is close to 5,000 square feet. The idea was to talk not just about the Indian design product, but the fact that a lot of things do come from India that people don't even know about. We spoke about chai, we spoke about chess. We also spoke about the Indian city. So as you meander through this space, the city reveals itself. So if anybody's been down the lanes of Jaipur or Hyderabad or Lucknow, the city reveals itself slowly. And that is the logic that we followed out here. This was designed to create this incredible statement in this huge area. So these panels are about 4 meters, 5 meters, 6 meters high that are meant to kind of create this sort of visual statement. We were trying to sell not just India as manufacturers, but India as a country of thinkers. Design for nostalgia. This is a design project, a space design project that we did in Bikaner. This was the house of the last ruler of Bikaner, Naren Singh Ji. And it was a complete idea in fantasy. We call this a biography in space. This building was originally designed to be a hospital, and then it was designed to be a regular hotel. When the refinery was going to come in Bikaner, then the refinery did not come in Bikaner. So then the client was wondering what to do, and that is when we said, okay, let us reimagine it as what it originally was, the house of a ruler. And we call this a landscape of memories. This is the restaurant, and a lot of Rajput women that you might have seen are very well known for the chiffon saris and the pearl necklaces that they wear. So this is called Pearls in Chiffon. This is a very big and a very detailed project. I'd be happy to share the PDF of the project with anybody if they ask me for it. But I'm just showing it as a direction of thought where nostalgia or memories were the starting point of the design. This is the same chair used in the India rooms. And the project was very lush, very vivid, very rich and intense. Um, this is Designed with the Muse. This was a showroom for a Jaipur-based brand called Birdichan, who are jewelers. And the idea was that, you know, Jaipur is very closely connected to the brand. And we thought, what about Jaipur? So Designed with the Muse, and the Muse was Gayatri Devi. So if she had a house in Paris, what would it have looked like? So it's creating that house, and the strategy was to not have any jewelry showcases, because strategically, the more the showcases you have, the more jewelry you need to put, the more it costs. If I put 20 sets on display, average cost of each set 1 crore, that's 20 crores, that's interest of every month. So we took all those jewelry cases away, and we put, you know, small cases that would have been meant for other things, for crockery, for library, things like that, and we stacked them up. But it was to be done as if it were the house of the Queen. The chandelier in the center is a 1890 chandelier from FC Osler and Company, original piece that we got, and that was the first piece, the first thing, the starting point of the project, because I needed to know whether the client would be willing to buy the vision. This is in Narayan Nivas in Jaipur again, where Mr. Kanota, the Thakur of Kanota, he had a collection of guns, and we created a restaurant around that. So Design for Legacy is how do we create with the collection of guns, and we called it the Shikar Bagh because it was meant to look like a hunting lodge of that time. This was designed for installation. This is a project we did in the US, and it was meant to be done very, very quickly and to be installed by people who were not part of the makers. India, if we had to do something, our people will go install it. We cannot do that in the US. And these are all heavily crafted, all mirrors. If one piece fell short by a small thing, it's not going to work. So designed to be installed, and that was kind of the starting point. This is a project that we did with Incubus Consultants, another colleague of mine from Delhi, Amit Gulati. Designed for Enterprise, this was the challenge that we had was, how do we get women to take, you know, the tourists around town? It was a project done by Access, and the idea was to create alternative employment for women who never really worked before as such. So creating a rickshaw which men would think twice before they drive. It's got a golden canopy on top and a bright pink structure. The project was not just about the auto rickshaw itself. It was constrained by very tight budgets, very tight timelines, and had to be done using the minimum, the least possible, and yet be iconic enough for visitors and guests to say, yes, I drove this incredible rickshaw, and speak about it. It's a project that's still running right now. I did this 6 years ago. It's still running, and they come to the next phase where they're developing more rickshaws and going across cities. This is, yes, I'll be very quick. This was an attempt to try and say, how can we, so, you know, a lot of the biggest challenge with the handmade is the fact that there's no branding, there's no market presence, there's no staking of the ground. So this was an attempt to have something which can be used across different craft communities, so it can be taken up and worked on with together. It was expressed in the Rajasthan Heritage Week that was held in Jaipur. This is the project designed for scale, which we did close to Bangalore. It's a nature cure center. And the idea was that how do we make design really simple, make it work within the budget. In the end, the budgets that we did after the design were lower than the budgets that were actually allocated for it. Kind of trying to bust the idea that design is about being expensive. Very simple, easy things that are familiar are put here, because this is not meant for the elite, it's meant for everybody. So putting in elements that are familiar. And so the administrative block was called the Garuda, and as you saw, the red building on top looks like wings flying. The dining hall was called Nandi, and the swimming pool and the yoga block was called Kurma. Again, words, but words that people can remember and connect to. That's a parametric ceiling, and that's a Samudra Manthan. Now this is drawing upon what we call public memory. It's memory that is out there, it's thoughts that are out there, things that people are already familiar with. So instead of trying to create new paradigms, how about we build on something that exists? These are the various spaces that were done. It's a very clean, simple, we call it a refined domesticity. And there's a plastic chair as well. The idea was not to push up the cost, but to amp up the experience. So I'll just zoom through it. Designing a home is a different story altogether. It's more about family therapy than actually designing anything. This is a home of two brothers and their wives, and it kind of shows how through the negotiating process, you know, when we state a design intent in the beginning, it was about them coming of age, them building their first house. And that is filled with insecurities of various kinds. And dealing with two brothers and their wives is a job. And this is a project that we collaborate with Cocoon Rugs for. And the idea was, at what point do rugs lift off the floor? It's a project called Yasmin, where we used rugs to replace upholstery. And while we are at it, do we really need to work with pre-existing definitions of furniture? So that chair that you sit on top is meant to be sat on sideways. That's the big lounger. It's a carpet flying upwards, and that's a daybed. And designed for a process. In one project, I was stuck with many sheets of 8 mm thick aluminum. And 6 mm thick aluminum, which on its own is not very strong, but when folded is very strong. So there's a whole range of furniture that we developed by folding of those 8 mm sheets. And fortunately, I'm now over with that stock, and I now have to buy more 8 mm sheets to fulfill orders that I have going on. Thank you.